Hey, it's Packaging Unboxed with Veli Matos. Today we're talking to Eva Lagarde. She's the founder of Resources.co, which is a website. It's a company. It helps beauty brands understand sustainability. Now, one of the things that you're going to get today is new materials. We're going to talk about how to research materials, how to research sustainability. We're going to talk about the challenges that beauty brands face every day in sustainability and packaging. Both Eva and myself are going to be speaking at Paris Packaging Week, January 25th and 26th. We'd love to have you there. If you're visiting, make sure you do come up and introduce yourself. We'd love to meet you. Now, this episode is brought to you by idpdirect.com, the most trusted factory direct packaging manufacturer of sustainable luxury packaging. They do this for global brands. So stop buying from resellers and just buy direct from the craftsmen and women that actually make your packaging. idpdirect.com. We're also brought to you by SpecRite, the only team that understands how to communicate all those ins and outs of your packaging in one simple, easy to use place. Don't know what your board weight is? SpecRite.com. Don't know who's responsible for approving the proofs? SpecRite.com. Not sure what the final approved art is? The final? SpecRite.com. If you don't spec right, you're going to spec wrong. This show is brought to you by PackDora.com. I love these guys. This isn't just a place to download packaging, die lines, and templates. It's a place to upload your art. Create 3D renders that you can share with clients, opened and closed, and you can spin them around for whatever presentation you need. PackDora gives you the full freedom of 3D rendering without really having to know how to do it. Check them out, PackDora.com. And if you want to join PackDora, use the promo code UNBOXED50, UNBOXD50. Get 50% off. Check them out, PackDora.com. Let's get to the show.
Yes, I'm a specialist in beauty. I've been working in the beauty world for about 15 years, always on the innovation side and the news media side. And I've developed recently a new company. It's about content and educational content for sustainability and beauty for product development. And I help beauty brands understand sustainability. And I just build reports and educational content because I really want them to avoid greenwashing as much as they can. And the only way to get through that is to be educated about what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think in cosmetics, it's really difficult because there's so many different requirements and we've changed design for so long where there's so much competition. There's so many materials from ABS plastics, to aluminums, to steels. Like,
yeah,
there is so much happening in cosmetics.
Yeah, and you know that cosmetics are very complex as well because there's a lot of different formats. You know, you've got the powder for makeup, you've got the mascara, you've got skincare, and some skincare have got very volatile or very sensitive ingredients, so you need to protect them. For body care and body wash, it's a bit different. It's a bit less sensitive, but then you have bigger formats. So it's really complex, the beauty world. There's so many things to pack and to protect that it's very complex, actually. Yeah.
If I'm working with a beauty client as a designer, obviously there's the surface design, all the graphics, all the artwork. That part we'll leave to the end. When we talk about cosmetics, the most important part is what is physically in contact with the cosmetics to protect it.
Yes.
What are the current options that are out there?
The current options are getting slimmer and slimmer because of the regulations, especially in Europe, for instance. Right now, we have to use recycled plastic. And by 2030, if packaging is not recycled or is not currently within a recycling stream, we won't be able to use it into consumer goods, meaning cosmetics as well. So we are limited today to HDPE and LDP, which is low density or high density polyethylene. And then we also have PET, which is polyethylene that is used for Coca-Cola bottle, for instance. This is the most used plastic in the world. We can also use aluminum, actually. To protect the formulas. We can use stainless steel as well. So we can use different types of metals as long as they've got a protective barrier so that there's no interaction with the formula. But usually metal are quite inert, so they don't interact with the formula. And the problem with the cosmetics, as I just said, there's an interaction between the molecule of the formula and the molecule of the packaging. Which could be the same for food, for instance. But food, the difference, you keep the packaging for a bit less time. When for cosmetics, it's 3 to 5 years. So you need to make sure that within 3 to 5 years, there's no interaction possible within the formula. There is also big use of paperboard and cardboard right now for secondary packaging. And there's a lot of innovation, you're probably aware, Evelio, about, like paperboard that would be waterproof, that would be able to be close to the formula and product the formula directly. But so far, it's not available on the market just yet, but a lot of people are working on this.
Okay. Yeah. And you said that there's a lot of different cosmetic applications, right? Some pressed powders, just loose powder. There's so many different things, and each one has its own chemical makeup.
Yeah.
So you have to adjust to that. You mentioned that cosmetics should be kept, at least with cosmetics, you need to keep, you're expecting them 3 to 5 years. Do you still have makeup from 5 years ago?
Yes, I do actually. And if anything, I never really finish any makeup, anything, like any powder or any lipstick. It never really get finished because it's a lot of, women, we don't have just one. We have 2, 3 different, maybe 10 different colors. Mm-hmm. So we don't really finish them. So yes, that's a really good question. And it should be still fine because
it's not a good business model, right? If people are only buying the product once.
Yes, I agree. But that's why there's a trend to do refillable, cosmetics, as you know, and also people are moving to smaller smaller packaging for actually makeup, because makeup, as we just say, we hardly finish anything. And so people, I don't know if you've seen the latest launch from Hourglass, the lipstick that is refillable. Sure. Lipstick. It's a very thin lipstick, and actually there's probably less formula than in a regular lipstick. So that's one of the trend coming up in the market. Yeah. That's
great. Yeah. I know I was working with a cosmetic brand here in the US, and this was after they had launched, and they came back and said, we need to change. They're like, we need to change the sizing of our packaging.
Yeah.
I was like, well, how come? And they said, well, we didn't realize that the tubes that we bought would actually last the customer, like almost 5 years. They're never coming back. So they had to change it just to make sure that new clients coming in or new purchases, because it just didn't make sense to sell something that's going to last so long. Yes. Here in the US, in the US, one of the challenges is the size of the packaging. Mm-mm. Right. In cosmetics, it's so small already that even replacing it with some of these great materials or, recyclable materials, it doesn't get recycled because of the size.
Yeah. Yes, we have the same issue in Europe. It's a global issue, and especially for makeup, actually, because for skincare, we tend to have a bit of bigger packaging, for the creams and for everything, and same for personal care, for body wash, etc. For makeup, that's why I think it's really important that brand move to refillable packaging, so that they have a host packaging, if you like, that is slightly bigger, and then they can just change one pan of color or refill one lipstick. It still doesn't make the refill necessarily recyclable because it's too small again. But there are some options, like if we move to only aluminum, if you just pop it into a Coca-Cola can, for instance, when it's finished, then it can be recycled within the aluminum field. So that's what I recommend to beauty brands, actually, or to consumers, like to put it in a bigger pack. Like if you have a PET packaging, then you put it in a PET bottle that you're going to throw in the bin. That's one of the way. But obviously, no one wants to really talk about the end of life because it's not a sexy communication. And so it's really hard for brands to educate consumers about the end of life. So they try their best to upgrade the size of their packaging or to move to refillable packaging. But still, it's really complex to educate because the recycling system is different from America than from Europe or from Asia. So it's really complex to know what to tell consumers. And also there's a bit of a backlash from consumers that they don't want to take the responsibility, because it creates with them eco-anxiety. So they said it's the brand's responsibility to look after even the end of life, which is a bit tricky, I found.
Yeah. And is that information that you're gathering from interviews and focus groups? Like, how are you collecting the data in your on your website?
Yes. So I'm currently working on a report related to refillable beauty. That's why I have a bit of content about this. So I usually do a lot of interviews with beauty brands. L'Occitane, for instance, they do a lot of refillable beauty, and have been doing so since 2008. There is also Beauty Kitchen in the UK. In the US, you have Easy, which is a makeup brand. And so I collect interviews from beauty brands. Then I have the chance to be in touch with NPD or Mintel to get some market figures about what actually people are buying. Are they really buying refillable beauty? And then I collect data from social listening as well. I work with agencies that do social listening and listen to what people are actually saying online. And from that, we get a bit of a signal about what people are saying about refillable beauty. But there's a lot of eco-anxiety right now, and even amongst professionals, because we don't really know what to do and what to start with sustainability. And so the more data, the more information we can gather, we can get together, it's the best. And I find that actually people are really happy to give me information because they think we need to educate ourselves. So I don't find anybody that close doors. They're really open to share information, actually.
Yeah, that's great. It's important. It's just important to gather the information, educate the consumers. And that's definitely the hard part. I know in like retail packaging, the brands don't want to have as much information, like, well, we can put a line of information here that says how to recycle this or how to separate it. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't look great. We don't like having more information on these. So you have to balance like the visual with the communication.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're finding as well? It's like a little bit of pushback.
Yes, especially for skincare and makeup, because they are very small packaging. So there's very little information you can actually put into a packaging. So there's a trend right now moving towards a digital passport, which would be like a QR code on the packaging where people can scan, and then the brands can update the product page with any information related to packaging, formula, recycling, etc. And I think this would be the next step. It's complex though, because I don't know if it's the same in the US, but in France or in Europe, there's a consumer law that says that anybody should be able to access product information, meaning that if you don't have a computer, and if you can't scan a
then
QR code,
you can't access.
Yeah. And so it's a bit tricky, and we're moving ahead, technology is here. We're doing online podcasts today, from different continents. So, but yes, it's a bit tricky, but I think that's the way forward, to have a digital passport and because it's online, it means you can update the information as much as you can. You're not stuck into a paper page where once it's printed, it's printed. So I hope this is going to be, a next move. Yeah.
Right. You mentioned just from a regulatory standpoint, looking at LDPE and a few other materials, like where should we really be looking? Because there's always new trendy materials out there.
Yeah.
I know I just had a client send me a link and they're like, look at this article, look at this material. And it's like, it's great for them to go out and look, but those materials aren't always the best.
Yeah.
So where are we going?
I don't know, because I really like new materials. I didn't mention them, but this is a new avenue of research with, seaweed material or biodegradable material based from bacteria or from mushrooms. All of these biotech innovations are really coming up in the market. The tricky point about this is we don't have any recycling or end of life or recycling stream for this product yet.
Right.
And as you say, it's a bit complex because we don't know how they're supposed to be biodegrading, but we don't know how long for and in which environment they need to be degrading. Doesn't need it to be a specific temperature. So it's a bit complex, but I kind of believe it's the future though, because there's a lot of trend about biomimetism right now, about the fact that we replicate nature and we put it into packaging or into product, meaning that if we replicate nature, then it can degrade like nature at the end of life. It's very complex, but because there's interaction with the formula again and the packaging, then it's complex to know whether this is going to work out. But I really believe in these materials. Having said that, though, the regulations will probably limit the way we can develop these innovations. I read a really interesting article last week in French, actually. They were saying that the regulation, because they only focus, especially in Europe, in the US it's a bit different, but in Europe, because we're focusing on material that are recyclable or that have a recycling stream, it means that any new material is not really integrated into a recycling stream today. So meaning that this material won't be able to be developed and to enter the market because they won't be allowed because of no recycling stream. And so they were saying that does the regulation actually prevent innovation? And I think it's an interesting take. I'm not saying that we shouldn't look at this material. I'm just saying that we should keep developing them, because I don't think they're applicable today, but maybe 10 years time, we will make enough advancement to make them really usable. What do you think about new materials?
That's a great point. I love the idea. I guess I don't love it. It's really interesting that they have I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. That article is definitely correct, right? Because there's no end of life waste stream for these new materials. It is anti-innovation. And that's kind of where we find ourselves, is when a client says, look at this new material made out of jellyfish, whatever. And we're like, it's great, has a great story. But because there's nothing that can happen on the end of life, it ends up putting that innovative material into the greenwashing bucket.
Yeah.
Right? Because it can't be accepted anywhere. But then of course there's like other, materials like not PLA, which is really, really pushing the bounds with
they just won the
biodegradable
prize.
seaweed. Yeah, that was amazing. That was super cool.
Yeah.
That was really, really cool.
I'm actually in touch with them because I want to develop something as well with them, and I've got a client in touch with them as well. So we're working together to see what we can do, because I think it's amazing material.
Like that type of innovative material, they weren't necessarily waiting for industry to catch up. They just developed something completely new that was outside of the industry, which is really, really interesting. There's a lot of other brands out there that are doing cool stuff. There's Mob Beauty in the US.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with them.
Yes, I know them.
Yeah, that's them. Like really cool.
Yeah, they do a lot of refillable beauty, and they've got a new product coming up on the market with carbon capture material as well in there. It will be released next year. And I know it's something I'm working on with the supplier actually as well. So for content, it's amazing. So we will be able to develop new materials and still make them recyclable kind of.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of cool brands doing a lot of cool things. In terms of the way that I feel about some of these innovative materials, is it's always that conversation of, yes, this is really cool, it has a great story. There's no end of life. So maybe we have to figure out the best way to use it. And at the moment, because everybody's rushing to, 2025 to reduce carbon by 2025, it's like those materials don't necessarily help you get there. So we need to look at how to incorporate those in the future. But at the moment, the big thing is let's focus on carbon reduction. I know, especially with like luxury brands, that's the big focus.
I know that's one of the main focus. And this is the thing, like you can't fight all of the battles with sustainability. You have to pick one to start with, because if you reduce waste, you probably increase the carbon emission that you spend. And then if you reduce carbon emission, then you increase waste, and etc. So it's kind of complex to fight that's what I mean by fighting all the battles, because it's a complex issue. And I think we have a tendency in cosmetics and especially in luxury to look for perfection. And I think this is where we need to stop, take a step back and try to see what steps we need to take to be somewhere in 10 years time. Because if we want to be that tomorrow, it's not going to be achievable, but there are steps that we can take without looking for perfection first, where we can apply some, common sense, product development or ideas, that will take us to where we want to be in 10 years time. But we have to have a vision for that and be able to spend a bit of money into innovations actually. All
right. So if I'm a beauty brand and I have a pressed powder, how are we designing this packaging? Right. We start with, where do you start? We have a pressed powder. We'll do one large color. What's the first step? Like, how do we get started here?
I would like to start as well. Is it just one product a year, or is it like, are you going to have reiteration of this product? Are you going to launch 3, 5, 6 colors? Because then if it's
we would launch.
Yeah.
So we're going to launch 6 colors.
Okay. So then I would definitely think of a refillable, packaging to start with, because then it means that whatever launch you have, you can have the host packaging that would be the same. And then you just launch the pad that you would put into the packaging first. And then, something that people are really looking into, and this really, I don't really agree with that trend, but people are moving to paper, especially for, pressed powder, because it's a dry product and you can transport it really easily. But I actually think that for the host packaging, we should go premium. We should have a very nice product that is not longer packaging, but is actually an object that you want to keep, that is nice, you want to put in your bathroom or travel with, and it's a very nice product, and it can be in a very noble material. It could be in Zamac. Zamac today, there's a recycling stream actually in France. It could be in ceramic or porcelain. So it could be a very nice, host packaging. And then you make sure that you have a pad that is in aluminum, for instance. So when the pad is finished, then you can throw it into the bin and it will be recycled within the aluminum stream. So that's how I would go about. I would think about also how to make my packaging desirable, because today packaging is a waste. And so you want to make people want to keep the packaging so that they refill it. Because if it doesn't look nice or if it's in cardboard not strong enough, then it would degrade really quickly after 20, 25 use. If you put it in your handbag or in your bathroom, it's going to degrade really quickly. So I would think about the robustness of the host packaging and then the refillability and the easy intuitivity take of refillability product.
So I love the idea of a porcelain compact, host pack that I can carry and I can refill. One thing I did see in press powder I thought was cool was, the bamboo pans.
Yeah.
Right. Where they're, it's a molded fiber bamboo, pan that fits. It doesn't transfer any moisture. It actually wicks away moisture. It had a lot of really cool properties. And then when you're done with the pan, it's a tiny little piece of paper, basically.
It's degradable. Yeah.
Yeah, that degrades and is easy. And then the other thing that you said that I thought was really cool. Yeah, there's a lot of options. The other thing I thought you said that was really great was, and this is funny because it's not something that I'd considered, is take your aluminum pan and throw it in a Coke can and recycle the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, duh. Why not? Why wouldn't we do that? That's so silly.
Yeah.
There's simple solutions to a lot of these really cool things.
Yeah, it's a simple solution. Like if you have like a PET, like now they do a lot of lipstick that is monomaterial. Like all of the lip balm are actually in PET or PP oftentimes. You put it in a plastic bottle, it will be recycled.
Simple things like that. And of course, if you put it on the packaging, then you're educating consumers to do that, and you're actually increasing recyclability, which is great because it helps the waste stream and the supply. As we're moving into more recycled material, we need more material. So it makes a lot of sense.
And we need qualitative material actually, because I don't know if you're aware, but everybody's requesting PCR in the market today. And because the infrastructure is not at the level that we need to supply the demand, the level of PCR is actually degrading overall on the market. And because we have regulatory, implication now, we have to input some PCR packaging into the packaging that we make. There's a lot of actually packaging that is not so nice, so good looking or functioning well because of the quality of the PCR. So it's a really big issue. And that's why we need to have more ability to recycle plastics. So we have more PCR available within the market.
The way that we recycle plastic now, we have so many different additives inside the plastics. And when we recycle them, we're creating this collection of plastics and additives that can't be, indirect food contact or can't be in direct contact with cosmetics. Is that an issue that you're seeing as well?
Yeah, so of course, yeah. And it's really complex because as soon as because beauty brands are requesting a food grade packaging for consumer safety. They don't necessarily need to use it because it doesn't, we don't ingest beauty products, so we shouldn't use it. But brands are using that for safety. But the problem is let's say you take a milk bottle and then you put cosmetics in there. Then as soon as you put cosmetic in there, it loses the food grade capability because it's not a food anymore. It's a cosmetics. And this is what we have with cosmetics. We use a lot of food grade packaging that is coming from the food side, obviously. And we don't supply food grade packaging to the market, to the recycling stream, because as soon as it touches cosmetics, it's no longer food grade.
Right.
So it's a bit complex. The only thing that is positive about the cosmetics is like compared to food, we actually use a less amount of packaging, because to make a cream, a pot of cream that you keep for like 6 months, then you use less packaging that if you use a bottle of water that it will change every day, kind of. So in the end, we use less amount of plastic overall than food industry. So it's not so bad, but it's really complex. So that's why what we tend to see now, we have a dual injection or dual, like they use PP, for instance, but they have in the inner PP, which would be food grade, and the outer, which would be recycled,
No.
ocean bound or whatever plastic. Yeah.
You identified 3 different trends for Lux Pack.
Yes.
In Lux Pack Monaco in 2022.
Yeah.
What are what are these trends that you're seeing?
Alors, so we talked about sustainability, which was the first one, but honestly, I don't think it's a trend anymore. I think it's more here to stay, and it's we mentioned that because it was one of the things that we wanted to talk about, but actually, it's just a big trend. It's just here to stay. And within the sustainability, what we could see was the move to more sustainable material and to there was a lot of move to we call that the glassification of beauty, where everything is moved to glass container, including, like removing plastic or paper, etc. There's a lot of things surrounding paper packaging as well, either through with coating that allows you to have a formula, contact with the formula, etc. And different types of paper that is used for, you talk about the pulp, the molded pulp. This is one of the big trends as well within the packaging. And also a lot of upgrading into the plastic. So now we see that with chemical recycling, we have the ability to use better quality recycled plastic. It's tricky again because within the European Commission, I don't know about the US again, but chemical recycling is not considered to be a recycling stream when it's actually recycling plastic.
It's not considered. All right. So can you explain that to me? It's not considered a recycling stream?
No, it's not considered a recycling stream because there is still what's the word? They trying to understand how the chemical recycling works to identify whether the waste creating during the recycling system is actually this similar as making crude oil. Because basically what they do, they use molecular recycling and they break down the plastic into back to oil, if you like. And so they're remaking plastic from that. And that process is not considered to be a proper recycling stream because actually you use a lot of solvent and chemicals to do this, meaning that it's not like mechanical recycling, where with the mechanical, you just downgrade and just cut down, small plastics. So it's under negotiation, obviously, right now. There's a lot of discussion in the European Union about this. But yeah, this is a bit tricky. So yeah, just to put it out there.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, we hear a lot about chemical recycling here in the U.S., and it's like it's the future. But to hear that it's not being considered recycling is definitely interesting.
Yes, so that's why we will have to see whether we can, like now in Europe, we can't talk about packaging to be biodegradable or even compostable. We're not allowed to say that because it's a bit misleading for consumer. Because what happens, and this is really bugs me as well, like people put that in their garden and they believe that it's going to degrade in like 3 to 6 months. And it will degrade eventually, but it will may take, 12 months to up to 3 years or something like this. So what's good about this biodegradable packaging is like at the end, it doesn't leave any microplastic in the soil. It will be completely free of plastic because it's a different material. So it's still better than plastic, but regulation as well is saying contrary. We can't use this word, and the same for recycling chemically. What can we say? Anyway, back to the trends.
No, but that was great because I think with the biodegradable, the other thing too is that you can't, you shouldn't be putting it in the recycling stream because now you're introducing a whole new material into with other plastics. It's just so complicated. It's so hard to be a consumer.
Yeah, it's hard to be a consumer, and also it's hard to be a brand because if you develop a very nice packaging that is biodegradable and doesn't, degrade, doesn't leave microplastic behind, etc., it's really nice material. But then I've seen some product from Sulapak. It's really nice, but it actually looks like plastic. So as a consumer, it's a bit confusing. Why do you put that? After you use it for 6 months, do you remember that it's not plastic? You probably don't remember. And so that's why it's a bit complex. Yeah. So, So
back to your trends.
Back to the trends. So the second trend was about performance. And because we have more and more sensitive formulas right now because we're removing any paraben or any preservative or anything to make the formula more and more natural as well, we need more protection, which is counterintuitive with the packaging that we need to remove to make sure that the planet is getting better. And so that's why the performance comes into place with a lot of pumps that are in monomaterial now, meaning that they are still working really well, but they are able to be recycled because they are in one monomaterial. Oftentimes it's PP, polypropylene. We also again, in this monomaterial, we saw like ampoules or syringe, that you use for like specific actives. These ones are also in monomaterial. And we also saw some caps from Aptar where you just click on and off the cap, and it protects from the e-commerce as well, from transportation. And it's monomaterial as well. So these were the types of performance that we could see within the luxe pack innovations. And then the last one, and I think it's one of the future one as well, is the experience. And I think we're going to see that more and more within the sustainability trend as well. Like people need to touch and feel, and there needs to be a special sensorial experience with the packaging. Mm-hmm. And again, it comes down to the idea of having an object that you want to keep. So if you work with ceramic, or if you work with paper, or with really touch and feel packaging, then you want to keep them. There's a connection that you create with the packaging that is different than just a plastic that you take and throw away.
When I saw the experience section of it, we were talking earlier of, the ceramics, the porcelain, it all really comes together. And it definitely changes kind of the way that you think about your packaging design. So again, if we were designing a pressed powder, and we've got 6 colors coming out, we could do either the like a bamboo pan or an aluminum pan. What would you choose, the bamboo or the aluminum?
Probably choose the aluminum. If it was recycled, I would choose a recycled aluminum actually. Because I don't know how bamboo is pressed and if it's sustainable. I need to do some research actually about this so I can publish on Resource, because bamboo, it depends. If it's made in Asia, it makes sense. But in Europe, we don't really produce bamboo. And so bamboo has to transport, when actually aluminum, where do we produce aluminum in Europe? No, but we recycle aluminum.
Sure.
So, but it depends. Again, it depends what you want to have at the end of their product, like Weiss. You know them? They have it's a color cosmetics.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the name I don't pronounce properly, but they have...
No, that was... Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And they have the 2 options. They actually have the paper compact. You can have your paperboard compact and then you add a pan in there. Or you can have the Zamac compact, which is metal and more heavy, etc. And they give consumers the choice to choose their house packaging, which is actually really interesting.
That is really good. And what is that called? Zamac? What is the...
Zamac. Zamac is ZAMAC. Weiss. Let me see.
This Weiss ends up on every cosmetic brand mood board.
Yes, true, actually.
Everybody, right? They love that white with like the molded shape.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's still very luxurious. That's the thing, like they and they've got a collection like the Chic Collective, which is like in paperboard, but you also have the option with Zamac, which is more, like longer lasting, I guess.
And Zamac is that's a plastic?
No, Zamac is a metal alloy, and it's a mix of different metals, and it's usually made in China. But now I'm working with a company to actually write an article about this, and they have developed a clean sourcing, if you like, so they know exactly where the sourcing is made, that there's no child labor involved, that they've got they audited the factory. And they also have a recycling of the Zamac now, because it's a very specific alloy, so you can't recycle it with other metal. And they are able to collect the Zamac products and to recycle them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm looking through here. So it's a combination of zincs. And so it's a great solution from a metal standpoint, longevity, protective, all those things. But from a recycling standpoint, though, then you can't recycle it. There's just not the waste stream.
There is
aluminum.
There is one waste stream specific to this company that they said, but then the thing is, like, this one is a keepsake. It's something you're going to keep because it's very heavy. And the beauty about Zamac is not like aluminum or other metal. It won't degrade over time. It won't go yellow, or it won't change. It will still be shiny. And so that's why I think it's a bit like porcelain, there's no recycling stream for that either. But then this is something you want to keep. And so
Right.
that's why you need to be careful of what product you want to use and what application you're going to use it with.
Sure.
I'm not saying that this is everything. There's no perfect solution today.
Right.
There's just what compromises are you ready to make,
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. And as I'm going through this, it's just really cool. So it's the Kaja Weiss compact. It slides open. You've got the pan, the replaceable pan. And when you run out of the pan, you can order it and it comes in a beautiful little molded fiber.
Yeah.
It's super minimal.
I agree.
Right? It doesn't take up a lot of space. And I think that experience is actually pretty luxurious, right?
Exactly.
That clean presentation.
And that's what you want. If you want people to actually refill their product, you need to make sure that the product that they keep is actually worth keeping.
This is similar to like what Mob Beauty is doing.
Yes, true. Mob Beauty is very classy as well.
Right. Yeah, they're doing some pretty cool stuff in here. So that's great. So then, all right. So we're creating a pressed powder. We've got a recycled aluminum pan. We're looking at using a metal compact for the outside of it. Do we really need a mirror these days?
Yes, you do need a mirror.
Okay.
But again, you can use the metal, like Zamac is very shiny metal. So you can have the inner, or what you can do if you really want to be super clean, you make sure that the mirror is removable. You either keep it in the same material, because if it's metal, the way you can decorate or like work on the metal, you can make it shiny on the inside. So the mirror is the same metal as the outside. Or if you have a mirror, you make it removable. And I saw when I was at Cosmoprof Asia, Korean companies are working on lots of, the compact cushion. And all of the compact cushion are dismantleable. You can dismantle the mirror, the outer, the inner cushion. So everything now is separable and recyclable separately. And I think that's the way to go. You need to make sure that everything is separable and recyclable in the specific stream.
I've got aluminum pan. I've got Zamac outer. It's shiny, so we've eliminated the mirror. And then how am I going to get this to the store? Like, what am I putting this into?
In the store, I guess, do you need to have a paperboard outside? Maybe today, if you can avoid paperboard, the secondary packaging, you should. But if we are using Zamac, it's a very shiny object, you need to protect it. So if you use with paperboard, it's better to have it with a virgin and locally sourced paperboard. Like if you sell it in US.
Versus a recycled?
Versus recycled, yes, I would recommend. Because recycled paperboard takes a lot of energy to be recycled. And then once you press it or you print it, it takes more ink or more round or more time to be pressed or to be printed, because there's more, what's the word? The paperboard would be a bit more degraded, so it would last long. It would be less sticky within the printing press, if you like. And so meaning it will create more waste. And, but then again, you would have to source it locally if you sell in the US, but you manufacture your paperboard or your Zamac, everything in the US. And if you sell in Europe, if you sell globally, then try to have a local sourcing and a local, manufacturer around. That's the tricky part for global brands. They manufacture for global consumers. So how do they do that? So, and we're seeing the move towards that more and more now. People are actually, before you would see innovation in Europe or in Korea, let's say. And now we can see that manufacturing plants are moving the innovative engineer to other plants in the world so that they can bring the innovation to the country where they're going to manufacture as well. Not to stay that everything in Europe or America or Asia.
I've seen that's something I've definitely seen. The blowback from that I've seen with brands is that, well, now they are not placing one large order, which brings their pricing down. They're placing multiple orders across the planet.
Yeah.
And in one region, it may be such a small order that the price is twice what it is in a different region. And there's that balancing of sustainability and cost and budgetary requirements.
I know cost is always an issue. And even for luxury brand, you would think, they don't have the money issues, because they're loaded.
Yeah.
But actually, it's a bit of an issue because, like the way they calculate their cost and their budget, if you like, is very, it's a thin line, it's to the zero. And so, But we are seeing that we have to invest in sustainability. We can't just say it's going to be the same cost and we won't pay some money on that. So, and we're seeing a really big shift on that front. Give you an example. In France, we have developed, not me, but the industry, the glass industry has developed a recycling stream for very white and very clean glass. Because until recently, glass was recycled disrespectful of colors. So you would mix wine bottles, beer bottles with fine glass, etc., meaning that every color would be recycled.
Right.
And now they've developed a system where they sort the glass by color, and then the white and the pure glass, if you like, is going to be used for luxury segments. And Chanel, together with Groupe Pochet and together with a recycler in France, a recycler of glass, the three of them, I've invested into that stream to make it possible. So it's interesting. It means that the brand now this time has taken on the charge to pay for the innovation.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. That's what we need, right? Is that investment in innovation from the brands that are needing it. And then there's that educational component. So it seems like we're moving in the right direction. It just doesn't feel like we're moving as fast as we feel like we need to.
Yes, I agree. This is
right.
something I can tell you, and we can talk about it. But brands are not. They're moving right now, but not fast enough. I agree, because there's still a reluctance to take on a challenge with a new innovation or a new product or try a new format or something new. So. But to be fair, we are seeing things that we never would have seen or imagined before, like the fact that Chanel is working with the glass manufacturer plus the recycler to make sure that the stream of glass is clean. I mean, I wouldn't have thought this was possible 10 years ago. So
no, it's amazing.
I think it's a big deal.
We're definitely making strides.
Yeah, we're making progress. And one of the things that really encourages me and gives me hope is that people are really aware that sustainability is a key issue now. And we can see that even for, investment and in the, like there was a company, I don't remember the name, I'm sorry, but it's a fashion company in the US. And before they started to be trading into the bourse, I don't have the word in English anyway. Before they started to trade it to be having more investors, there was like a signatory agreement that the investors wouldn't stop them from spending some things or like on manufacturing if it was more sustainable, but if it was more costly than other options. So they even made it into their investment board that if they wanted to have investors, they shouldn't be able to have a veto on the spending they were going to make into more sustainable product.
Sure.
So I think it's a very, very interesting take. And we see now in the ESG, like the environmental and social, impact is going to be more and more important in the result of the company. Today, we still see that the way we account for results is about the money we're making at the end of the quarter.
Right.
I wish we would put them in front of the waste that these companies have been created. Because today, so far, we only say, Q4 result expected, above expectation. Yes, but then you created that money, but then in the same time, you created that much waste. So what if there was a bonus malus in front of the waste that we create compared to the result that we make? I don't know. It's a bit complex, though.
No, it is complex, but I think that's kind of, the direction where we need to go. I think we're seeing a lot more reports coming from each brand in terms of how sustainable their packaging is, and there's a lot of pressure on them. So it definitely seems like a direction that we're heading into. As we start wrapping up here, Eva, what's the best place for somebody to learn about sustainability in cosmetics?
Well, I can say it's subscribe to my platform, obviously, because I really focus on this, and I don't really want to talk about anything else than cosmetics, because I think in itself, the cosmetics market is quite big. As I said, you've got personal care, you've got skincare, you've got makeup, you've got a lot of product within the industry. So there's a lot to cover. And each of the products have got their own issues. So I think as professionals, we have to educate ourselves and read as much as we can about what we find, online and what we need to develop. And I've developed this, and I'm doing my own reports because I found that people say, "Yeah, but I can do a Google search and find all the information I want." I say, "Yes, sure, you can do that, but it won't necessarily be focused on cosmetics." Because everything related to packaging is not necessarily focused on beauty. And then secondary, you have to understand what you're reading. And sometimes if you're not a specialist, you don't really understand what it means. And you can take something that seems green, that is actually not really super green, and it's actually greenwashing in the process. So if you not able to read between the lines, then you can make a mistake in developing a product. And that's what I'm trying to help beauty brand achieve. I'm not saying this is good, this is bad. I'm just giving all the information for them to be able to make mindful decision. Because at the end of the day, I think there is power in knowledge, and we need to educate ourselves.
That is exactly what we're looking for, right? Is you're not picking up the phone saying, what do I need to use? Hey, do this or this. It's, this is what's available, and here's the research behind it. Here's what consumers are saying. Here's, consumer sentiment across these materials and what's possible globally. And then it makes making a decision so much easier when you have it all laid out for you versus, I just Googled this popped up. It says it works, then you launch it and there's so many issues with it because you don't have that research. So that's amazing, Eva, that you're offering this. And your website is resources.co. It's re-sources.co. And you can subscribe to it on the website there. You've also got a lot of free information on there that people can read.
Yeah, there's a lot of free
learn
articles.
More about you and what you're doing.
Yeah, there's a lot of free articles. I send a newsletter every Friday to keep people up to date with sustainability. And then there's a subscription button if they want to learn more. And alongside that, I also do workshops for beauty brands because sometimes there's a lot of information to take in, and they like to have a one-day workshop to put everybody at the same level of information before they can continue on the journey. So yeah,
that's amazing. What you're doing is great. I'd love to have you back on.
Thank you for
on the podcast in the future. This was really, really fun and super informative. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Eva.